Thank you, Roberto. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our March 4th, 2026 Oregon Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. Um, I will start out by saying that we're really happy to announce that Governor Kotek has appointed Brad Davis to serve as the bike business representative on OBPAC. And I know Brad said that he was going to join. I don't see him at the moment, but we'll give him time to introduce himself later if he can make it. This all just happened um, very recently, so okay. Let's go ahead and have our OBPAC members introduce themselves. I'll start. I'm Dave Thompson, currently the OBPAC solo co-chair. Hope to change that today. And why don't we go to Dell? Why don't you introduce yourself and then pass it on, Dell?
Yeah, I'm Del Scharfenberg. I'm from Milwaukee, Oregon. Longtime bicycle commuter and advocate. Um, I'll pass it on to Leanne.
Hi everyone, I'm not an OBPAC member, but my name is Leanne Ferguson. I work for the Oregon Department of Transportation and am the Active Transportation Senior Policy Analyst and support OBPAC. I'll pass to Beth.
Hi, everybody. I'm fighting a cold but otherwise doing great, loving not working every day. I am the member that is representative local government / planning. And I'll pass it to Emma, our non-voting member.
Sure, and welcome, Brad. We'll be passing it to you in just a moment here. Yeah, I'm Emma Newman. I am from Springfield, Oregon, and I've been on OBPAC for a number of years, first in a voting member capacity, or more recently as a non-voting member. I also serve on the Jurisdictional Transfer Advisory Committee on behalf of OBPAC. And I have a little announcement to make, so I figure might as well make it now. Looking at my schedule and all the different things going on in my life, I am deciding to step down from OBPAC. So that is going to not only affect this position, but also necessitate coming up with a representative from OBPAC to serve on the Jurisdictional Transfer Advisory Committee. I have full trust that this committee membership and committee with the staffing is in great hands. And the JTAC will provide an update later on the agenda. But we just got through some of our work for this year, and that's also in a really good position. So it's good timing, but I really have been honored and privileged to serve on OBPAC. And we'll miss doing this work. I wish I could do it all. And Beth's going to vote me off the committee, so I'm out of here. No, Brad, I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, I'm Brad. Can you everybody hear me?
Yes. Welcome, Brad.
Yeah, glad to be here. It's my first meeting. Thank you. So I'm a bike shop guy, and right now I'm short staff, so I'm actually working at the moment, unfortunately. But we'll be able to be fully present moving forward. Thank you very much for having me here, and I just want to share whatever I can from being a bike shop and help you guys make this state easier to ride around.
I just
Excellent.
want to comment, Brad, that our former bike shop member used to also take OBPAC meetings working on the floor at the bike shop. So you are.
I didn't mean to. It's just what
It
happened.
happens sometimes, and it makes me smile. Anyway, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you so much.
Hey, Brad, I won't make you figure out who to pass it off to, so I'll go ahead and hand it off to Carrie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Roberson. I am a community program specialist with Multnomah County Public Health Department, and I live in Northeast Portland, and I am here to represent in the environmental realm. So very much happy to be here. Glad to see everyone. and engage.
Thanks, Carrie. I think that's all the members that I see here. Ian, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ian Davidson. I'm the Bicycle and Pedestrian Program Manager at ODOT. Sorry that it looks like I am not on camera. I'm having to join from two devices so you can hear me clearly. So you'll see my face later on. So I'm one of the folks who staff this committee, and I work on bike ped issues across the state for ODOT. And I'll popcorn it over to Roberto.
Thank you, Ian. We're able to see you actually. So camera's on and working. I am Roberto Cotto. I am the I work for the Public Transportation Division as an active transportation program analyst. And it looks like we are a couple of folks short for quorum. So what we can do for the meeting minutes is to push those towards the end. I'll keep an eye to make sure that we have all of the folks, but we're still missing Kathy and also Nolan. Andre, unfortunately, will not be able to make it today. And so let's go ahead and do that and do the meeting minutes towards the end.
Roberto,
Go ahead,
I
Beth.
just texted Kathy, but I haven't heard back from her. So
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Beth.
Okay. For other ODOT folks who may be joining us today, please introduce yourself in the comments or chat, and we will move on to meeting goals. So today, in addition to our normal agenda items, we are going to get a briefing and have an opportunity to provide advice on a proposed active transportation program report. We're going to get a presentation from ODOT Government Relations on the current legislative session, which is obviously still in flight. So I'm sure there will be some uncertainty there. We're going to get to take a look at a new tool that ODOT's been building to highlight active transportation projects that have been completed. Then we're going to get a little bit of a deep dive into one of those projects just as a example, and so we can see good things happening. We're going to get an update on the Oregon Coast Bike Route Plan implementation and the work on a new map. And finally, assuming we get a quorum, we'll be voting for a new co-chair to join me in helping to put these meetings together. So then with that, I'm going to pass it over to Roberto for a quick meeting etiquette update.
Thank you, Dave. If this is your first meeting here at the OBPAC and are not familiar with our code of conduct, just wanted to remind folks that we are recording this meeting to abide with the Oregon meeting laws, and also minutes will be posted onto our website at the end of the meeting. If you are providing any type of comment, just make sure that you keep it respectful and to avoid any derogatory language. If you haven't used Zoom, please take a moment to become familiar with the platform down at the bottom. You'll see a mute button. Also, we ask for folks who are not doing any presentations or are not an advisory committee member to turn off their cameras unless they're speaking or providing any type of public comment. If you wish to change your name, you're able to do that on the participant list. Also, we have a chat room available where you're able to let us know about providing public comment. You're also welcome to use the reaction button by raising your hand if you want to provide public comment once we get to that portion of the agenda. if you are providing public comment, we try to keep those 1 to 3 minutes. And as I mentioned, um, raise your hand or post that information in the chat room. Thank you and welcome. And I will pass it back to you, Dave.
Thank you, Roberto. So we'll move into public comment. So we did receive one written public comment about safety issues in Newburgh, which is on our meeting packet. And now I would like to ask if we have anyone who wish to provide comment here at the meeting.
Okay, I don't see anyone raising their hand, nor do I see anything in the chat room. The written testimony that Shannon submitted is on our website and also part of the people's package. Thank you, Shannon, for submitting a comment to the advisory committee. And I think we can move to the next topic. Beth?
Beth.
Excuse me, I lost my door. Okay. So this is great, Shannon. I looked it up and it's not gonna, I don't think this ODOT 140, which is North College Street, is going to be affected by the bypass that's south of there. So this is going to continue to be a problem. I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that, but this is for the OBPAC members, is that maybe we could have a policy. She commented that she doesn't know where to send it, and we have a slightly better idea of where it should go. And so if we could have somebody, maybe the co-chair, respond and send it to the right person with maybe something that says, OBPAC is not endorsing, is not taking a stand on this, but we just wanted you to read this letter and, send it. And I don't know if we can do this. Leanne, maybe you can tell us, send it, or either send it to their state representative or local city council. And I think having it, what's the word, broadcast or raised by OBPAC gives it a little more meaning. I know that as a local representative in local government, and that's my role here, that oftentimes things go to the local bike ped group and it just flounders there. Nobody knows what to do with it. It dies. We have had a very unresponsive city council to OBPAC issues. I mean, BPAC issues. So I'm just wondering if maybe at the least a letter from our co-chair saying you want to send it to this person, specific name at ODOT, specific name of their representative, etc., and then they can go from there, because we don't want it to just die here. So that's a thought.
Thank you, Beth. I think that's a good thought. I do think Ian probably has something to add as far as the ODOT part of that. Go ahead, Ian.
I was just going to add that I've actually called Shannon twice. I've left 2 voicemails because I want to do just that, Beth.
Okay.
I want to walk her through that. She obviously put a lot of thought and effort into it, and she's interested in learning more, and so I want to help her with that. So hopefully we're able to connect. Yeah, so effort has been made, I guess is what I'm attempting to say.
Yeah. What about from other people too, like the local city council or the local state representative, that sort of thing?
Oh yeah, no, I will recommend that she contact multiple people, not just ODOT, not just people within ODOT. Yeah, because it's obviously an issue within her city, and so her city should care about it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's, it's unfortunately we're not a great encyclopedia of all the right people in all the right places outside of ODOT. Certainly within ODOT, I think these comments should always get passed to the region's uh, bike ped liaison, because they're supposed to know who they need to bring that to. So that would help too, I think. I'm certainly, if I know anything about, uh, Newburgh, I'd certainly be happy to reach out to her. I don't know that I do, but if I can think of anything, I will.
Okay, but what about the idea of elevating it and to, look up who's in the city council and tell them that, no, that's
I,
probably not a good idea.
Beth, I just think that maybe is a little bit outside of our wheelhouse.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
I
I just
think,
wanted to hear what your guys' opinions
yeah,
were.
I
Yeah,
think recommending to her that she reach out,
yeah,
to her city government is very appropriate. But
yeah, yeah.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I don't want to volunteer to research that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Ian, for doing that and for letting
Yeah.
us know. You do that with pretty much every letter, kind of.
Yeah, if they have a phone number, I always call, and if not, either Roberto and I email. And sometimes, they're not actually asking for anything; they're just letting us know. And so that, of course, dictates things. But
I might say I'm quite well acquainted with that piece of road she's talking about. We've actually had some organized rides that use that stretch of road. Um, uh, it's not terrible. It's I think the main thing she was pleading for is a lower speed limit and some traffic enforcement, and that's something that I've been pleading for citywide and statewide ever since I've been on this committee. And I think we just need to slow people down out there. Uh, there is a there is a bike lane that's not very well maintained. Um, anyway, my my reaction to that was, yeah, it's not the most ideal situation, but it's no better or worse than hundreds of other situations in the area. So that's my 2 cents.
So, yeah, good feedback, everybody. So we can try and stay on schedule here. It's great that we actually get these kind of requests. I do want to say. Um, okay, so we're gonna skip over the meeting minutes unless we've had somebody else join. See anybody? So we'll revisit that later if we get a quorum. And now we'll move on to the active transportation program report. And Ian, I think that's one's in your capable hands.
it's certainly in my hands. We'll determine later if they're capable. Um, okay, so okay, can you see my slides?
We can see it now. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So today I'm gonna pitch a high-level proposal to you. I'm hoping to get your feedback that'll shape the development of this. And so I most likely will come back with a more finished product, but right now this is still in the ideation phase. But that's why I'm here today, to get your advice as the advisory committee on all things bicycle and pedestrian at ODOT. So we are conceiving of doing a report of active transportation programs at ODOT. There's a couple different, I guess, origins of this idea of a report. The most recent one is that the Oregon Transportation's Continuous Improvement Advisory Committee, so it is a subcommittee of the Oregon Transportation Commission. They met and we presented to them in February 2025 about the active transportation audit. And so it was a presentation not too dissimilar from the presentation that you all received that I presented at our most recent December OBPAC meeting. And as part of their feedback, they recommended a report on all of ODOT's active transportation efforts. And so we've taken that feedback into consideration. A presentation that I'll be doing later on is partially in response to that feedback, but this report would be a companion piece to that. Probably more importantly is ODOT's desire to be more transparent. Much of the information that we're conceiving of putting in this report is already accessible to the public. It's not particularly easily accessible. And so this would put it into a singular report that would summarize all or nearly all active transportation efforts that ODOT as a multimodal transportation agency is undertaking. So here are the high level goals for the report. It would be a place where information that exists elsewhere is compiled into one easy to read report. This could include, and please note the italics here because we're still at the ideation phase. This could include a history of active transportation investments in Oregon. So for example, it could include a short segment on the passage of the bike bill and what the bike bill did for Oregon in active transportation investments across the country. It could also have some information on the key performance measure report. That's a report that I presented to you all in the past. It's the measure of the frequency of marked crossings and how present sidewalks and bike lanes in fair or better condition are in select corridors around ODOT's highway network. It could also include information from the Transportation Funding Needs Report. So that's the report that identified that we needed an additional $150 million a year invested into the bicycle and pedestrian program to be able to build out ODOT's active transportation network within 30 years, as opposed to more than a century. And then it would most likely include an overview of each funding program. So whether that's Safe Routes to School construction, Safe Routes to School education, the state bicycle and pedestrian program, Oregon Community Paths. So these are all different programs that people are maybe vaguely familiar with, but this would provide more detailed information about each of those programs. And then potentially include projects from each of those programs, example projects. So I'm coming to you today seeking your recommendations and advice. Here are a few questions to maybe prompt some of that recommendation and advice. So considering limited staff resources, what are your priorities for a report like this? Or what should this report include or not include? Is there something that you've seen in other reports that you don't actually think is valuable, or something that you've seen that is very valuable? And then lastly, when highlighting projects, should the report highlight certain types of projects, or relatedly, should they be presented in a particular manner? Or do you have strong feelings about how the photo selection of projects that'll be presented in this report? So with that concludes my presentation, and I would welcome your advice and feedback. I'll take it back.
Meant to raise my hand there.
Okay,
it is
go
good
ahead,
though. So let's see. So could you make this in dashboard form?
So I will actually be showing you in probably 20 or 30 minutes a dashboard. So this would be the non-dashboard version of this. So think of a PDF or a printed report.
Oh, and that dashboard is what you posted?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I like it with it's got a few typo type stuff, but other than that, I think that's very well done. I
Oh, you know what? I'll also mention we're working on developing a story map. So it's a
oh
type of
good,
dashboard, but
perfect,
more in a storytelling manner. So we would have
wonderful.
functionally two online resources that would help tell the story, plus one additional report that could be printed or just remain online.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest the story map also. I've never done one myself, but they seem to be a little bit more interactive than a dashboard. So yeah, I love what you've done so far.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Emma.
Thank you. I think this is moving in a positive direction. Um, I was thinking where my brain immediately went when you said this is where it's coming from. I was thinking about the current legislative session, and I forget which bill, it might have been Senate Bill 1544, talking about the Washington Gray Notebook, and I'll drop a link
Yeah.
in a moment. But that's a conversation happening at the state legislature that is trying to encourage more transparency and show some examples of what that could look like. Some of what I like about that, as well as what I saw up in British Columbia at a conference years ago with, I think, their public health department pairing with active transportation, is simplicity. Like some key, here are some very simple messages. And then if you want to go deeper, here's how to go deeper. So I might encourage the report to have like a one-page executive summary or just like a highlights sheet at the beginning where it could be a standalone one page with a link to here's how you can go deeper if you want, or you can keep flipping through however many pages it is after that. But I
Mhm.
think really clear, simple messages that tell the story of where we're at, what our values are, and how we are making progress towards those values, or if we're falling short, tell that story as well. It could be safety, it could be here's the entire system and where we are at in building out the active transportation network and kind of the funding rate related to the progress we're making or not making and what it would take to achieve the Oregon Bike Ped Plan adopted policies and vision for the state.
Great. Thank you. I'm writing down all your feedback. Dave.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, I agree that I think this is a really good step in the right direction. Kind of tagging a little bit onto what Emma was saying, I really like the idea of showing what has been done, where we've made good progress specifically, and then using that to emphasize the need to take that vision for that problem, and how many other places we have that in the state that still hasn't been addressed. Somehow kind of say, hey, this is great and we need to do more. And here's the fact that there's still a lot more to do. It's nice to celebrate. It's also nice to know that you're not done,
Mhm.
I guess. I don't know exactly how that would look, but just some thoughts.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
So I'm thinking we're your big picture people. So
Mhm.
big picture. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but because I don't know. But the social benefits of investing in active transportation, not just deaths, the health benefits of riding and walking, the all that good stuff. How it is a viable way of transportation for people who can't afford a car. Blah blah blah. So all those good social, I think there's a word for it, but building your society from the bottom. Um, every single person, helping them get on with their lives. So the benefits of active transportation, and then maybe at the end, kind of what Dave was saying, I believe, but um, how you as a citizen looking at this thing can promote active transportation projects in your community. So much like we talking with this, not that we spoke with her, but the woman Shannon who wrote the letter, what can she do? Have one page of it be, here's how you contact your people, and give them a list and keep it updated with the, have it link in with their current legislators and have it automatically change when the legislators change and that sort of thing. Kind of an ending. Here's how, not only why is it good for everybody, not just you, not just the like red clad people, but why it's good for, and then what you can do as a citizen, because you're already here, you're thinking about it. That's what I would add.
Great. Thank you, Beth.
Mhm.
Any other feedback? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ian.
Brad, were you coming back to your screen to provide some input?
I wish I could. I'm still, learning all this. I'm kind of blown away about the, amount of money and the amount of vision to have this, plan and like what's going on in it. Um, I wish I had input on the present on it to give, but I'm just taking it in at the moment.
Sounds
Been
good.
that, Brad.
And apologies, like I just got on the thing, knew about the meeting a couple days ago, and it turned out to be short-staffed today, and yeah, sorry.
Yeah. We've all felt that way when we started. So, but going forward, don't be shy to jump in, even if you think you may not understand everything, because that's what we're all here to talk from where we are. So,
Okay,
thanks.
thank you.
Okay, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, and I don't see Justin on, who's the next presenter. Ian, I think we have time to move right into your next item on the dashboard if you want to just, if you're ready to
Perfect.
jump into that.
Yeah, let me cue that up. Okay. All right. So here is the state-funded dashboard for the bicycle and pedestrian program. So when you first go there, you have probably seen this. So there's this little welcome blurb providing a little bit more context of the nature of these dollars. These particular dollars are the dollars that are mandated by state law to be spent per the bike bill on bicycle and pedestrian assets across the state on ODOT highways. So sometimes referred to as the 1% set aside. That's what this dashboard is highlighting. So those are dollars handled by ODOT staff internally that fund projects on ODOT highways. And so unlike Oregon Community Paths, which are grant funded dollars that go out the door from ODOT, these typically stay within ODOT. Sometimes we do partner with local agencies to do the work, but it's always on ODOT right of way. So this is the dashboard. This data is updated quarterly. Not that many projects get started every quarter, but each quarter this data will be updated. You can see here that this is data from going back to 2001. If you want to, you can select a particular year. So here are all the projects that got that received funding in 2022. If you want to focus in on just one region, here all the projects that have been funded. through the whole full period of time that we have data for Region 2. This one's pretty powerful. This one breaks it out by Senate districts. So if you wanted to speak with a legislator, or if you're a legislator or a legislative staff person, and you wanted to take a look at what these investments do to your community, you can take a look. Anybody have a Senate district they want to shout out? Actually, does anybody know their Senate district? Let's look at 22. So we've got 3 projects built as a result of these dollars over the years in Senate District 22. Similar filter here for House districts. And so that can be a powerful tool if you're a decision maker wanting to understand what the impact of this relatively small amount of money. This is 1% of the state highway fund to date. So let's zoom in on one particular project. We'll hear more about this project in a few minutes, but this is a project in ODOT Region 1 along Oregon 99 McLaughlin Boulevard. This was on initially Southeast Maple, and it's for a RRFB, a rectangular rapid flashing beacon and speed feedback sign. So this project will add an enhanced crossing and ADA access to the intersection of McLaughlin and Maple. This project will add an enhanced crossing and ADA access mid-block between Glen Echo and Gloucester. This project will add a speed feedback sign near Park Avenue Transit Station. So it's one dot here, but there's actually multiple locations here. And we'll hear more about this particular intervention at Oregon 99 East and Maple later on in the agenda. So it provides high-level information. It does not provide super detailed information about a project. If you wanted to get that, you'd probably want to reach out to the individual regions to get that project information. So it's just one more tool for how we present or are a bit more transparent to the public on how these dollars are spent. We have similar dashboards for Oregon Community Paths. To date, we only have data presented for state-funded projects. And so Oregon Community Paths, for example, has a lot of federally funded projects. That data has not been included in the dashboard. This only reflects state dollars that have funded Oregon Community Paths. So to date, 14 projects to the tune of $9.5 million. All of these projects have gone through OBPAC for approval. So you can now take a peek, look at these, learn more about it. We also have a Safe Routes to School dashboard. So you're welcome to poke around on these dashboards. It's just one more way that we're trying to make things a bit more transparent and accessible to the public. So happy to answer any questions. And if there's no questions, I think Justin just joined. Oh, Emma.
I think it to be a little bit clear, I'm glad that there is the dashboard, but the welcome thing saying state funds are restricted by law for bike ped and Safe Routes to School only, and then having a link to the Safe Routes dashboard. I'm not clear whether Safe Routes is part of this layer, but then it's separated out on the other link. And it's not super clear 1% set aside. Because I could read this if I didn't have knowledge. I could read this as like all state funds can only go to 2 things, and yet there's plenty of state funds going to preservation and bridge projects and you name it, a number of other things. So I think just a little bit more clarification and referencing specifically what this is showing and what it is not showing.
That's helpful. Thank you. Beth.
Okay, excuse me. The blue dots, it would be nice to, well, I don't know how you want to do this, but perhaps have the color of the dot dependent on the phase of the project, because 2022 doesn't mean anything to me. What I want to know is it funded slash in design phase? Is
Hmm.
it under construction or is it completed? So maybe somehow get that information there. So I can
Hmm.
look at my local and say, okay, that's still in design phase. Okay, but the money's there. Okay, so there's that. And then the senators and the Congress people, I tooled around and trying to find like um what my senator, which one's my senator? I think it's Gomberg, but I'm not sure, or Anderson. Anyway, if you could have maybe them in a zone layer, so obviously the whole map would be covered by the senators, and then another map would be covered by the Congress people names. And so,
What do you mean? Do you mean that there would be an overlay with people's names on it?
yeah, so when I click on my address, or
Hmm.
my street, or my city, I can find out who my congressperson is and who my senator is.
Hmm. So the Oregon legislature has a tool like that. If we were to link to that tool, would that be helpful?
Well, people don't, they get off it, they're on their phones, and it's hard to go back. If that could just be a layer that you click on and off, or however you want to do it,
Okay. Yeah.
you
I
but
I just
but
want
that would
to
be nice.
I do want to point out, I love hearing the feedback. It is going to be, we are going to be able to implement some of it. We're definitely not going to be able to implement all of it. So if you're okay with us just listening
Yes.
now and then at some point implementing what we can, there's a balance between creating a site that's so complicated we can't
Yeah.
keep it updated and
Right.
providing a base amount of information, Beth. And that's the line we're trying to draw here. So I love hearing the feedback, but I want to take some of the
Yeah.
pressure off Ian, if possible, to say, yes, we'll do that, or no, we won't do that. But I'd love to hear it all
Yeah.
here, if that's
I
possible.
always assume that, Leanne.
Okay, good.
I'm just saying it.
I
Maybe
want to
some
hear it
kettle
all.
will
I want to
drop.
hear it all. Okay, perfect. I just want to let's just set the stage for, let's get all the feedback we can. We will
Yeah.
do what we
Yeah.
can to make this as
Because
Hmm.
useful
I
as
don't know
possible.
everything that's going
Thanks.
on, and that's great to remind me of that. Okay, those are my inputs.
Great. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Ian. I don't see any other hands raised.
Oh,
Beth.
I'm still here. I'm still on audio. Okay, quickly, Uquina Bridge is spelled wrong, and not needed capitalization in the, when it says ODOT Region 2, Sharrows on Uquina Bay Bridge, the errors in description are Uquina Bridge spelled wrong, and also Sharrows don't need to be capitalized. My little nitpicky stuff. I'm done.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Ian. And that's great information. And as always, folks, if you think of something afterwards, you can always let Ian and Leanne know via email or however you'd like. Okay, moving along, our next item on the agenda is legislative update, and it looks like Justin is here with us. There he is.
Yeah, thanks, Co-Chair. Can folks hear me okay, first off?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I've been told that I sometimes sound like a robot, but it's also just good to know that people can hear me generally here, so that's fantastic. Let's jump in with a quick legislative update. I think it's a timely one, considering where we're at in the session. So I'm happy to be here with you. Appreciate you all inviting me here. I'm going to just give a quick rundown of kind of where we come from and where we are now. We'll hit a little bit on the budget development stuff for folks that have been tracking closely. There has been some movement there, and good news there too. So let's jump in from kind of the macro view. There are about 300 bills introduced during the short session this year. We at ODOT were tracking about a third of those, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100 of those bills. Some just, in case they were amended in a way that could potentially have an impact on the department. But others that were going to be, it was much more clear from the beginning that they were going to have potential impacts. We are at a point in the process now where most of the bills that we're going to move have moved and are out of committee, whether that be their policy committees or their joint committees, ways and means, revenues, rules, whatever it might be, and are being slated for or are currently slated for readings on the floor. So whether that be in the House or the Senate, they're going to switch, right? So we are in very much the final days of session with bills being slated for their final readings, which is exciting. I will take the opportunity now to jump into kind of ODOT's budgetary circumstances. So over the weekend on Sunday, actually, the legislature released its kind of what I'll call the pair of budget bills for ODOT. One was 1601 and the other was 5204. And between the two of those bills, they redirect funds in a way that will allow the department to continue providing maintenance and operation services throughout the rest of this biennium. And they do that kind of in two ways. They hold open some vacancies at the department, and then they make redirections in revenue or budget at the department over across a series of programs to allow for that. So those bills again are 5702 and 5204 rather, and 1601. They have passed out of the Capital Construction Subcommittee in Ways and Means. They've also passed out of the full Ways and Means Committee. And through the floors too. So good news there, as that was one of the bigger items for ODOT this session. I think another bill that I'd probably flag for this committee that has seen some movement in the final days here is HB 5007. Or 4007 rather. 4007 was the omnibus transportation bill out of the House Committee on Transportation. It included kind of a hodgepodge of different things. There's a pilot program for milk trucks in there, but there was also a program or some micromobility changes. And so that would be the provisions that I think might be of interest to this particular advisory committee. So if folks haven't taken a look at that, definitely take a look at HB 4007 for the micromobility provisions of that bill. Again, a transportation omnibus bill, so you'll see some other stuff in there as well. But you'll see the micromobility provisions in there too. Then there were a lot of other bills in both the House Transportation and Senate Transportation committees that either moved this year or did not move. And ODOT will be putting out a legislative summary at the end of session that kind of summarizes all of those bills, what they were intending to do and where they made it in the process. Yep, that's perfect. Thank you, Ian. And then the Joint Committee on Transportation Oversight also met a few times during session as well. They did not move bills this session, but they had several committee hearings where they talked in large part about projects, project oversight, project development, project completion, things of that nature. So if that's of interest to anybody, would recommend tuning in to some of the recorded sessions there. Again, all the sessions for committees and floor are recorded, so folks can go back and check them out. That, I think, is the update. We are getting very, very close to the end of session. I would say we should expect to probably see sine die within the next few days. Constitutional sine die is the 8th, or this Sunday. I think we're suspecting that it could be much earlier than that. So keep your eyes on things. Floor sessions will be winding down, I think, over the next couple of days, but we're getting there. That I think is the takeaway. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions folks might have. No questions?
Let's have Brad go first.
Maybe Emma and Brad, were there questions there?
Yeah, so the milk truck bill that also includes micromobility and penalizing retailers for different things. Uh, uh, well, can you tell me? I'm sorry, I'm still new to all this stuff. How do you know when it's passing or not passing, or can be still amended, or is it too late for any changes, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, 4007, the bill you're referencing specifically, Brad, has passed, I think, one of the chamber floors at this point. And so it's just got one more vote to go. At this point, they're really, um, we won't expect to see any changes to that bill. That opportunity for that bill to kind of be changed has passed. And so with it on the floor, it's just going to receive its up and down votes, which it has had on chamber, and it will just have on the other floor. So that one is well on its way to moving.
Hmm. Thank you. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Emma?
Thanks. I think my question is also about the HB 4007. There
Sure.
was maybe a few weeks ago now, over the weekend, an amendment that was introduced to cut safe routes to school funding and shift dollars to try to address the ODOT overall budget, to move safe routes funding from spending on the state system, which is often one of the biggest barriers for kids getting to and from school. And so I just wanted to see if you could confirm. I think that amendment did not pass in the bill that has gone to the floor, but I just was looking for clarification on that, please.
That is correct. Safe routes to school is not addressed in 407, or the funding isn't touched by 4007. That's
Great.
correct.
So just looking at other committee members, letting you know it was potentially on the chopping block. Thankfully, it wasn't chopped, but something to look out for, and was surprising to see that happening like over the weekend and then moving super quickly. So there was barely any opportunity to engage.
Any other questions? Sound like it? So for folks that are interested in 4007, it's got a second reading in the Senate, so that's the last chamber for it. So folks can definitely tune in to the Senate if you're looking to track those. And again, mostly on final readings for bills. So it's all available on OLS if folks want to tune in live or check out the recordings afterward.
Justin, this is Leanne. Can I know we both work for ODOT. I should know stuff, but this is all happening so fast. I wanted to follow up the bill that you were mentioning on the floor that had language to pull safe routes funds out, had also had language around the multimodal active transportation fund, which funds our Oregon Community Paths program. Do you know if this committee has an interest in Oregon Community Paths? It partially funds Oregon Community Paths. Do you know if the multimodal active transportation funds is in the draft that's currently on the floor?
It is not. This
Okay.
bill, I think, really just addresses three things.
Okay.
At this point, there were a lot of amendments, so all of these are also very fair questions. I mean, we should leave with that because there have been a ton of amendments to this bill, including, Emma, to your point, ones that were released very, very late in the game.
Okay, I'm behind, but so if you don't know either, that's totally fine. I'll do a little bit of searching to see if I can.
You're not behind, but I can confirm that was not adopted into the bill. So the only three things in this bill are micromobility. There were some amendments to micromobility that added some additional stuff on micromobility, but the three buckets: micromobility, HCAS dates, and then milk trucks are kind of the three big subject matter areas. So that active multimodal and community paths, safe road stuff, not a part of this bill.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, well, Justin, thank you very much.
Actually, Justin, could I ask one? Sorry, Dave, is that all right?
That's fine. Ian, go ahead.
Justin, so I'm afraid that we might be talking about two different things. So there's the House Bill 4007, which doesn't include any safe routes to school funding or Oregon Community Paths funding. The budget bill, though, that one does impact those programs, correct?
That is correct. Yes, that absolutely is correct.
Okay.
So that's SB 1601. And so for folks that want to go take a look at that, that's the bill number you should be looking for, and the same one you should be tracking for floor votes. And that again is part of the larger redirection of existing programs at ODOT to allow us to be able to continue doing our maintenance and operations work through the rest of this biennium. And that does touch revenue sources, including HB 2017 revenues for highway funds, safe routes to school, the privilege tax, including those things that go to like Connect Oregon and community paths, as well as the transportation operating fund and the student driver fund. So definitely take a look at that bill. But that is an important clarification. So thank you, Ian, and apologies if there was any confusion in how I was conveying that.
Okay. Thanks, Justin.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to threaten to close this off one more time and see if it gets anybody
I'll
else.
get out of here, Co-Chair. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin.
Yep.
That was great.
Bye now.
Okay. Kind of scary times in the legislature. So we've got one more item on the agenda. We're kind of a little bit ahead of schedule here. And that is I guess what we're calling a project showcase. And today we have Paul Scarlett, who's here with us, I think, to talk to us about a project. Hi, Paul.
Hello, Dave. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to showcase a project that we did a couple of years ago. I believe Nate Scott, hopefully he's on.
Yep.
He will be presenting with me as well. First, we do appreciate the opportunity to talk about our project. It's always nice to go through these long processes of design and, of course, even before that, identifying projects, designing them, and then getting them constructed. And we kind of keep going about our business, making sure we improve our facilities. And sometimes, it's nice to take a minute and share the good things that occurred. So there should be a slide deck. Ian, who is going to help with presenting? Or do you want us to pull it up?
Yeah, I got that. Let me go ahead and share it, and just let me know when I can move forward to the next slide.
Okay. All right. So this is our cover sheet. Again, Paul Scarlett, I'm area manager where this project exists and was designed and constructed. Presented today with Nate Scott. He was a project manager who helped facilitated the design team and worked closely in getting the project completed to go to construction. So we constructed what's called a rectangular rapid flashing beam project at Southeast Maple and Oregon 99E. It was a project that took a number of involvement, coordination amongst different disciplines within the agency. You go to the next slide, please. So that's a before that slide was before the improvements. A couple of bullet points that we've included here for context, which highlighted some of the challenges for the area, was the width of the roadway. 5-lane cross section, a lot of cars going and vehicles going at high speed. We had in this area count was about 26,000 vehicles per day. That's a high number compared to, say, even for comparison and context, OR 2224 to the northeast there has about 30,000 vehicles per day. So it gives you an idea this is a highly traveled area. There's also limited crossing in the area, safe crossing areas besides a signalized intersection. And the red star shows in between two major streets where the crossing was designed. And so again, it's at Maple. It was identified. Why Maple? Well, a number of I guess background or our active transportation needs inventory identified this location as an area that needed improvement. The 2023 vulnerable road user assessment also identified this area. as, of course, needed improvement. And we also had the 2023 McLaughlin Boulevard Investment Strategy, also identified this area. That's not listed here, but it was a key component in identifying this location. And unfortunately, there was a also fatal crash that occurred nearby that kind of precipitated moving forward with getting a safe crossing in the area. Next slide, please. A little dark, but this slide really shows some of the, if you see the improvements, it has an overarm mass arm, it's called. I've got a pedestrian refuge in the middle. Of course, sometimes lights might take maybe change, and someone needs to be, of course, have a safe place to stop. There's also push buttons, and the cross, what we call chevron crossing, helps to identify that's an area where people are crossing. And so that's just to give some a little bit descriptive of what the project looked like after it was completed. Next slide, please. One of the questions posed to us as part of the invitation was how were we able to design and construct this so quickly? And certainly unfortunately, just like a lot of laws, sometimes fatal and some other accidents may increase the rate at which things are built. No exception here. We certainly don't use that as a criteria, but in this case, it did help. And so we actually were able to design and construct this cross in less than a year, about 7 months to be exact. We started with a team kickoff back in May of 2024, and through a number of steps, working with different disciplines within ODOT. From roadway to right of way to traffic, and we were able to construct the RRFB and completed by the end of 2024. It's actually exactly on the last day. That was a goal we had, and we got the news from our construction office, and we're pretty pleased to share that with Ryan Winsheimer, our regional project manager, and others. And so we certainly didn't do this on our own. A lot of coordination with headquarters and some other entity to help move and streamline the project along. Nate will talk more about those things, but also the costs, which is the last note on this slide, a little less than 900,000. I think we had about 1.5 million estimated to complete the project, but through some efficiencies, such as cutting out a number of design steps, if you will, we were very careful not to take any shortcuts per se, but we were able to find streamlined ways to accomplish the design and get it out the door so it can be constructed sooner. I would be remiss if I didn't extend our acknowledgement to I'm not sure if it's OBPAC, for the funding that was provided for these types of projects some years back. It did take a while to get this project completed. The money was there, and we were thankful and able to access it quickly. Carrie Franey, who works closely with us, assisted Nate and I with getting funding and making sure any adjustments needed that was processed quickly. So, Nate, I'll pass it on to you to complete the rest. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul, and thanks to the group again for inviting us to share kind of a case study in how we pulled off an important crossing on a quick schedule. Next slide, please. So yeah, just in the previous slide, we kind of Paul laid out the timeline. It took us basically 7.5 months from kicking off the design to getting the substantial completion of the project in the field. And so here's kind of a grab bag of how that was possible. First off, it should be understood that that timeline in the ODOT world is exceedingly unusual and exceedingly fast. A typical project of this sort, just to design it is going to take anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years. If we needed right of way, you add another year or more before you ever even get to a bid. And then construction, typically months to a year for this type of project. So the fact that we were able to design it in about 3 months and then get it under contract in 2 months and then completed construction in another 2 months just really speaks to an unusual set of circumstances, at least within the ODOT context. And I would say overarching that the bullets that you see on the screen are kind of a grab bag of different things that happen, but the kind of general theme is we treated it sort of like an emergency project. It's not technically an emergency that has a certain meaning in ODOT, but it was basically a priority project. And the first thing we did is got buy-in on that concept of prioritizing this project from top to bottom within ODOT. Definitely within the design team, but all the way up the org chart to, the chief engineer, the various folks in Salem who support the work that we do in the regions at ODOT and everybody else. And that kind of helped clear a path to keep this project moving with urgency. Another major aspect of why we could go so quick is that we had 100% state dollars on this project. Most of ODOT's projects that are in the STIP are a combination of federal dollars and state dollars, and that federalization piece, which obviously helps a lot of our projects, it also brings with it a bit of extra steps and adds time to some of our processes. So by having 100% state dollars, we were able to basically write our own schedule and where appropriate, really shorten some of the process points. Third bullet here, I just talk about program support and funding flexibility. This was sort of what would I call it? Sort of a fallback plan. When we started design, we had $1.5 million, basically said, go build this thing, do it quick. We didn't know exactly what the actual estimate was going to show, and that we had some assurances that if we came up short, we were going to have support from the bike ped folks to help us try and fill any gaps that might arise in funding. Fortunately, ultimately, we didn't need to make use of that, but we had that conversation early. And so then once my role and kind of leading the design team kind of starts on the fourth bullet, and one of the key pieces was just really looking at risk mitigation very early on, identifying all the things that could go wrong that we could think of, and kind of thinking like how we would mitigate those issues should they arise. So for example, we knew right away that we can't acquire any new right of way. That wasn't going to be an option in the timeline that we had. Typically, if you do need to acquire right of way, you need to provide at least 12 months in the design phase to acquire right of way. And so, for example, we said, okay, well, if we're going to design this to fit within right of way, but at this moment when we're first kicking off, we actually don't know where our right of way is. That's a whole other story. We didn't have very precise survey at this location. So we developed a plan B that is, what can we do to basically shoehorn in some ramps in our right of way, get the signal crossing open, and then come back later when we have, when adequate time has passed to obtain the permanent right of way, if in fact we would have needed it, to then come back and do the permanent ramps. That's a type of example of kind of having a plan B mitigation strategy. There's, probably 10 or 20 others I could think of just for this project, but it was an important kind of aspect of how we were successful. Continuous design from kickoff to bid package. So during the design phase, again, a typical ODOT project will have anywhere from 3 to 5 different milestones. And between those milestones, design kind of stops and we do a review cycle for about a month. And, it's pretty easy to see how added all that together, we can get to something like 1 year to 2 years of just design. We took a different approach. Is we're going to start designing and we're just going to kind of take a triage approach to solving problems and keeping moving forward. And when you do that, it introduces certain risks of, you provide a lot less time for kind of discovering issues and working through them in a kind of deliberative and in a way that we're used to doing. I'll put it that way. But in this case, it was something we chose to do as a way to just get it done quickly. And it did work out well. Wouldn't necessarily be appropriate for every project, but worked in this case. Just how we structured meetings during the design was the normal cadence of ODOT delivered projects is kind of a once a month project team meeting. Everybody kind of reports back on what they've been working on or whatever. Well, in this project, we had weekly meetings, and the difference between a monthly and a weekly meeting, that cadence, it's very fast paced. And again, kind of that triage approach where we're just trying to solve problems and what's next kind of. So that was appropriate and very helpful here. But again, you couldn't do that on every project. This, again, mentioning back that kind of emergency project mindset. This was a piece of that. Let's see, next bullet, highlighted in orange here, and this is something that became very kind of pivotal for this project. So we made a decision early on to procure the signal equipment ahead of finishing the design. So again, kind of the usual ODOT process is you design a project, however long that takes, you put it out to bid, and then the contractor who wins that bid will go out and purchase the mast arms, the controllers, the various other types of equipment that will be needed to complete that. And the current lead times on a lot of that stuff is 6 months, sometimes more, but sort of that 4 to 6 months. And right out of the gate, we knew that wasn't going to work for this project. So we made the decision to do the absolute minimum amount of design we needed to figure out what the size and type of signal like mast arm equipment would be, and then order that. Again, something we could only do because we had 100% state dollars, and then finish the design while that traffic pole manufacturer was fulfilling our order. And then by the time that pole actually showed up, we'd have a contractor on board ready to go. So a few other just kind of quick ones here. This particular corridor is a freight route, and if you aren't aware, there's a mobility advisory committee, which among others includes like trucking industry folks, and they, on projects like this where we change some of the dimensional characteristics of the highway that can affect freight delivery, it's important that we involve them, and they provide commentary and ultimately approval from their perspective on this. So because of the compressed time frame, we had to arrange to have a special work session with this group, and again, kind of treating it like an emergency, as if this were a landslide or something, where the usual process wasn't going to work. I think I've already kind of mentioned that because of the state dollars, we went through a different type of bidding process that is only available to us when we don't have federal funds, and that allows us to kind of compress the schedule for that piece. Took about 2 months, which is a little bit faster than average. This involves things like DOJ review of all of our contracts, the actual advertising and bidding processes, were accelerated to the extent that was feasible. And then the last phase, the construction schedule. We don't normally build these types of projects in the winter. This one ended up, the contractor was, the winning bidder was given notice to proceed, I want to say in October, did the majority of the work in November and then December. So weather, a major consideration. Anytime you're doing any kind of paving, striping of pavement, those things are really temperature sensitive operations. So we had to think of ways not only to kind of cross our fingers and hope for the best, but also if issues related to weather or other types of things came up, that we kind of had backup plans for how to at least get the signal open with temporary striping, for example, and then come back when the weather allowed and finish it up. So, and then should definitely mention a little bit of luck helped in every case, and certainly helped in this one. Let's see, next slide, please. So I think when we were invited to talk today, we were asked to talk a little bit about, to the extent that there were trade-offs or risks that we had to kind of factor in and overcome with the approach that we took. What were they? So this is my attempt to kind of on a the survey in particular, we didn't have, when we started design in a usual project, as I keep referring back to, a usual project, we might kick it off, and then 2 to 3 months later we get our first survey base map. So clearly, we had this whole thing done in 3 months, so that wasn't going to work. So we built upon some existing data, made some sort of educated best guess assumptions about right of way, and again that kind of plan B approach where we felt pretty certain that we knew where right of way was, but if in fact it was somewhere else, well, then we would pivot and do this other thing. It turned out that when we finally got the right of way footprint for this one, we had just enough space to fit in our original design. So that was another example of good luck. And the risk, of course, is when we do this kind of, push it through and have few opportunities for review and that kind of things, it does increase the risk that we're going to miss issues that arise and miss the kind of usual process for resolving those. Puts greater risk on the construction end. Also, in the design phase, you have a higher potential for having to redesign stuff if you catch it late. So let's try and move through these as we go here. So talked a little bit about right of way already. Most things that ODOT design, there's a standard design, and a lot of times, the standard designs don't necessarily fit in the amount of space you have without acquiring new right of way. In this case, we knew right off the bat that we weren't going to get right of way, and so we were kind of balancing that risk of what we can make fit. But anything that isn't the standard design, we have to ultimately get an approval from somebody, either within the region or within Salem. And so trying to balance that risk of not receiving a design approval versus having to add time into the schedule that we knew we didn't have for our right-of-way phase. So the single mast arm design, in an earlier picture, you saw what that looked like. It wasn't necessarily a risk so much as just kind of an unusual approach for ODOT. Most of our signalized stuff is kind of symmetrical, for lack of a better word. And this, a problem-solving approach we took in this one was because of constrained right-of-way and utility overhead conflicts that existed on one side of the highway, we decided to do an asymmetrical design that allowed us to make the most use of where the area we did have right-of-way, a kind of slightly larger than normal mast arm that spanned half the road, and then a side-mounted type of pole on the other side that has a much smaller footprint and didn't come with the same conflicts as the larger pole. Again, talked a little bit already about the early procurement of the signal poles and electrical components. The risk associated with that, which I think I kind of alluded to, but is you order a pole after you've only spent a few weeks doing the design, you're locked into whatever that pole you ordered. If then and so the risk ultimately is the pole that shows up might actually not be the size that you've finally figured out you needed, or that you're going to be, really trying to tweak that design to make that pole that did show up work. Again, we got caught a little luck on this, and things worked out. But that's a risk that the normal process would suggest you wait until you have a pretty good understanding of the actual requirements before you buy the biggest expense on the project, essentially. So utilities, the loads of utilities out here, underground, overhead, and everything in between. One of the issues, so just for example, things that come to mind on this one, we had a major water line underground. We had a fire hydrant that was very much right in the area where we needed to build some ADA ramps. We had overhead utilities in the form of comms and power on the other side that were very much going to be in the way of a pole and illumination. So we solved those things in different ways, but ultimately there were utilities that needed to move, and those utility projects are their own projects in the world of the utility. They have their own typical timelines that we, don't control, and so we really leaned into the idea of relying on those existing relationships. We had the person at ODOT who does utility coordination has all kinds of relationships in that world and really called in a lot of favors to help us be successful. And again, things kind of fell into place, but it could have easily gone a different way. Kind of covered this one already, but the risk of laying down striping materials during wet or cold weather does carry a certain risk that that product will not, have the expected design life or could fail prematurely. We had good luck in the form of, we had great weather in November, and the call was made on the spot to do the permanent striping in that window rather than coming back later in the spring and doing it then. And yeah, just kind of a catch-all here about how we handled the construction end. We, did the very best we could building a construction schedule and a sequence of work that made sense and was compressed. But ultimately, once we get a contractor on board, they own the schedule and they will propose a schedule. And we lucked out. We got a really capable contractor in the form of Brown Construction, who understood what our goals were, understood the urgency behind the reasons we put the project together the way we had, and brought a lot to the equation themselves for getting it done. And in fact, in many cases, got it done ahead of what our expected schedule was. So yeah, kudos to them. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this just wanted to kind of amplify a point I started to make on the prior slide, that calling in favors was a major way that we were successful with this. And again, the theme that hopefully you're kind of picking up on is that, this required a degree of buy-in and recognition that this project was a priority in the ODOT world, and that's why folks were able to kind of step up and go above and beyond. And in the case of the design team, it involved working overtime and weekends in some cases. In the case of utilities, it involved creating their own urgent projects at the request of ODOT, that kind of thing. And this couldn't have been done without kind of that level of priority focus from everybody involved. Just kind of go through again in no particular order, but some of the things that made that possible. So we had expedited design reviews and approvals. So this is an example of something that require those design reviews and approvals happen at the Salem level, not in the Portland office where this design work was happening. And so we had folks who were treating our requests for approvals as priorities and expediting those approvals. And instead of it taking 3 months, they would turn it around in 3 days, that kind of thing. Help from ODOT maintenance to help with the signal procurement that I talked a bit about. So we actually, in the design side where Paul and I live for the most part, we don't really have a process to buy equipment. That's something the contractor does, that after we, in an average project. Who at ODOT does buy equipment are the maintenance folks. And so they helped us figure out how to, get the order put together, and in fairness, did that ordering for us and managed the contract around the signal poles and other items. Let's see, and I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat here, so I'll come back to that one in a second. Had some good collaboration with TriMet. We, as many are RRFBs, these pedestrian crossings are located in spots where transit use is high, and but because of our design, we had to move some bus stops around, so I had some good partnership with them on that. I already mentioned the mobility piece, and again, I think I mentioned this one, but yeah, DOJ, we had to call in some favors in terms of their usual timeframes, and then the overall contracting process that followed that. And yeah, I think I've mentioned these other two already, so let me look at the chat here. Were there cost savings due to the expedited timeline? Anything that can be learned from this project and applied to other projects? Yes, and I would say, actually, if we go to the next slide, I might have some words there. Yeah, so and again, I think, yeah, Paul mentioned, so the photo here is on the literal last day of construction of this project, and that was December 31st, 2024, and just just as Paul mentioned, our goal was to finish it by the end of the calendar year. That was our region manager's sort of challenge to this team. And here we did it, I think by lunch on December 31st. So I suppose we had a little time to spare. And there again are the kind of key cost statistic or cost data points. I would say the major ways to answer the question in the chat, the major ways we saved money and there's I'm hesitating a little bit because there are some trade-offs, but basically by shortening the design phase, there are just person hours that go into payroll for the designers and the folks who worked on it. If in a usual project you're working on this project for 2+ years versus in this case the design largely was done in 3 months, there's definitely a savings. I'm hesitating because there's a risk side to that savings, and it worked out well in this case, but it's not necessarily going to be a slam dunk savings in every case. Let's see some of the other ways. We probably, to be honest, like by purchasing the equipment ourselves, we actually, that's potentially like ODOT's not necessarily going to get the best price on a signal pole than a contractor may have a certain relationship with a certain vendor. And that's some of the kind of the ways that the bidding and bidding out process that is our standard. The reason we put as much as possible into the contract is that it does sort of make use of sort of some of the market forces that then can help lower costs. So that one's probably a wash, or potentially even we pay a premium for a pole in this case when we buy it ahead of time. I don't know, Paul, you may have other ideas while I'm thinking about this. Yeah.
No,
Well,
you've covered it well. That's the same response I put in the
okay.
chat. Less meetings, less costs
Yeah, there
equals
you go.
savings.
And this one can go either way, but the other big place where kind of cost savings potential comes in is by having a competitive process at the bid. And in this one, we did have multiple bidders, as I recall, but because it was a fast track project at an odd time of year, there's certain risk built in to having this approach, in that if you only get one bidder, if you have no competition, right there, assuming it's within the budget, you're going to pay the the price that was bid. But if you get 10 bidders, which would be highly unusual, there's an inbuilt competition there to help lower costs. In this case, I think the bid came in below what we expected it to do. Was to come in, I don't remember, I don't have it in front of me, but our sort of internal engineer's estimate was at least a couple $100,000 higher than what ultimately the lowest bid price was. And that's, in part probably due to just a competitive market that's kind of been taking shape, and that's very cyclic. You certainly can't depend on it, but we kind of had it hit the market at a time when things were kind of in our favor, I guess is how I put that. But so I put together a few bullets here of kind of the key lessons from this project. Again, is sort of a case study and I think this kind of goes back to the question, what could we learn from this that might be carried forward into future projects? First thing is establishing criteria for rapid delivery. This project was treated like a special case, a priority, an emergency, and by definition, not every project can be treated that way. So other things probably went a bit slower because this one got to go faster. And so establishing some criteria for what those are. Focusing early on risk mitigation, having backup plans, and something that definitely was a major part of our strategy. I put in here strengthening and expanding early procurement options. So again, because this was kind of a one-off, we had to asked for help and kind of find, people who do ordering of equipment had to make time in their already busy work lives to help us with this one. So kind of developing some processes around that and having that as a tool in the toolbox, I think would really be helpful when it's appropriate. And let's see, balancing speed and risk in the delivery approach. I think I kind of covered that, but there's almost always a trade-off. I suppose occasionally, there's only upside, but going fast generally means adding risk in terms of the ultimate quality or other factors. And then hopefully you also heard this, fostering strong cross-team relationships inside and outside the agency. So at the end of the day, we're all just humans, trying to help each other out. And that was a major win factor for this one. So it's something that we, strive to do always. But I think when you have those relationships, you can ultimately lean on it. It can only help. Yeah. Next slide, please. Of course, speaking of human relationships, we also celebrated with the team and everybody else involved at ODOT in the form of a team celebration, something we should probably do a lot more often than we do, but we made a point to do it with this one. And Paul supplied us with a cake that had the RFP on it. So there's that. Next slide. And again, there's a picture of the finished project, or at least the nearly finished project, last day of construction there. Happy to answer any other questions you may have.
So Paul and
Nate,
I have to assume that everybody involved, just walked away from this feeling really good about how everything went. I think if you just add one bullet to your list of things to make this happen in the future that says acquire the correct amount of luck at the beginning, then you'll be good to go. But it's so great to see a project come together like that and just come out awesome. So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome. For context, yeah, a lot of people walked away. We're all happy with how it finished, but during that timeline, it was different. Like we use the word expedited. There's a lot of emphasis on how different that is for designers and folks to go normally what would take a year and a half to two, maybe in 7 months. So it was a challenge, but with good cooperation and communication and ongoing meetings, we got through it.
Yeah, I would agree. There was at times, a high degree of how to put it, professional stress, in meeting some of these timelines. And I certainly felt that, and I know others who worked on the design and undoubtedly the construction phase felt the same way. So yeah.
Great. Anybody else?
Okay.
Oh, Beth, sorry, I didn't see you there.
Yes.
Just you just mentioned, I think you just answered my question. You said there was considerable amount of professional stress. I'm a designer too, and I landscapes though, but I can understand that. Like, did you have dreams that the arm would not be long enough, or too long, or topple, or yeah?
Yeah, I mean, things happen, right? And also, I mean, anytime you're constructing things, you have a pretty good idea of like what lies below the surface, but until you dig that hole, you never know for sure. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and thank goodness we have really good folks in our construction side who I'm not one of them, but who handle the field work.
So you had a lot of risk, and it sounds like you had a lot of stress on your design team and you, and so it's a success. That's great, but I'm not sure if this is a template you want to follow all the time. I'm putting words in your mouth. What do you think?
That's a good question. We've actually so we have another RFP being designed a couple miles south of here, or south of Glen Echo. And so folks were leery and low and made it clear that we hope we'd have to go through this fast pace again. And that I think sometimes it's more concerned about maybe missing things or being rushed and not feeling like very balanced. So we said, no, we're not going to do that. But given the importance of these improvements to allow for pedestrians and bicyclists to cross such a busy corridor or wide corridor, we do want to make it streamlined and go faster. And so we said, okay, we're going to look at maybe a realm of a year or so, providing you don't need right of way. So, 7 months is crunched, 12 months, a little easier to handle. And the more we do these, I think people are getting more used to them. So improvements such as RFB and state funded dollars, we can get there.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. There was a question
Congratulations.
about what other options were offered, stuff like roundabout. This corridor is I guess the focus is to get vehicles through this area and bicyclists and so forth. So a roundabout probably wouldn't have worked well. They're a lot more costly than $1 million, and so is a signal. So what was identified was the RFB as the options. I don't recall other options being contemplated in any kind of in-depth way, unless Nate, you know something else.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And one of the things, the existing context out there, we have a couple existing RRFBs to the south of this location. So there's an effort to kind of treat corridors in a kind of consistent or coherent fashion. Roundabouts, I would just note, right-of-way considerations would have been really big for a roundabout if that were a viable option, there's no way to fit a roundabout in the cross section that we had. So definitely would have required more property. But yeah, I think in part because of the corridor context and the timelines and things of that nature, the RFP was the primary consideration.
Looks like Emma has her hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. It's not
Oh,
comfortable to do things out of the norm, and I think especially the engineering profession is created in such a way to assess for risk and try to plan for all the worst case scenarios. And sometimes the status quo of pedestrians crossing the street and getting killed in the interim or waiting for delivery is a risk that isn't necessarily weighed the same as, well, this is our typical process and this is how we do things. So I appreciate that this was done and that there's learning in the agency from it. I'm going to drop in the chat a link that we talked about back in 2022, the Ohio DOT, as we were looking at other DOTs and how they're delivering projects. My notes on it were they had like 10, $11 million total, and they picked locations for new crossings to be installed. There were 390 new crossings in 2 years, which averaged $30,000 per crossing average cost. And so I think looking to other states and saying, where are things getting done at a system level that is producing the results that we want? Yes, there's some risk involved, but are there other ways to approach things where we might be able to deliver something for a whole lot less? If we're looking at like, is it $15 million for a roundabout? Is it $1 million for a crossing? I know just a few years ago, it seemed like RRFB was 250, 300. So the cost changes over time are big, and I think anything we can do as professionals to think about where can we reduce costs and address the needs and produce the outcomes desired is good. I think just my current context, I'm looking at 3 DOJ review cycles just to get to the start line of a planning process, let alone multi-million-dollar infrastructure projects. So there's some things that could be improved, and you are being part of that by testing out and challenging the norm. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Emma. I'm going to have to cut this off at this point so we can try and stay on schedule. Really appreciate you guys coming, Nate and Paul, and sharing this with us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thanks
you.
all.
Okay, time for a break. It's 2:41. We're just a hair behind, but let's try and get back by in about 12 or 13 minutes. So 10-2. No, sorry, that's not right. 5-2. And we'll resume. Thank you. Thanks, Roberto. So we're gonna make a little change here. Andrea's got some, I don't know, wants to get outside and take a walk or something. So we're gonna let her move her presentation up so she can get on with some other things. So Andrea, if you're ready to go, you can.
I am, Dave. Thank you so much. And I would love to go outside and take a walk. The sunshine is out, but unfortunately, it'll be a few more meetings before that happens. But thank you for your flexibility to come and give our report from PTD sooner. And I'm sorry I missed the introductions earlier, but I wanted to welcome you, Brad. Nice to meet you. Welcome to OBPAC. It's a great committee to work with, and we really value the advice and input from this committee. So I wanted to share a couple things. I know you had the legislative update, so if you have follow-up questions about that, I'm happy to answer questions to the extent that I know the answers, particularly about how it might impact future active transportation related funding. But I wanted to share some other news, which is we have some staff transitions at PTD. Leanne Ferguson is staying close to home, but she is going to be moving to the Transportation Safety Office starting next week officially. She has been offered the Transportation Safety Office Manager role. So we're very excited for Leanne, and I'm very happy that she's staying with ODOT, and we'll get to continue to work together. And for those of you that are familiar with our Safe Routes to School work, you know that we partner very closely with the Transportation Safety Office. So I'm happy to have Leanne in that role. And so please join me in celebrating Leanne. We're going to miss her. She's been an important supporter and very important in guiding and leading the OBPAC. And we're really grateful for her leadership and her service, and very glad that we'll get to continue to work with her. And then in her place, Amanda Howell, for those of you that know Amanda Howell, who has been leading our Innovative Mobility Program work, is going to be stepping in as our Senior Active Transportation Analyst role. So you will see more of Amanda along with Ian on this committee and have a chance to work with her. And she's going to be leading the work as we kind of revamp and revise our active transportation strategy and kind of lay out our kind of future priorities and where we're headed for the public transportation division. So very excited to have Amanda join and step into which are big shoes to fill, but she will fill them very well. So thank you, Amanda. And then the other staff change I wanted to let you know, Leanne has been covering the Oregon Community Paths program for quite some time. We had somebody in rotation, Ula Yannick, covering that for some time. And Leanne has been keeping that all together with her regular job. But I'm happy to share that Bridget Bottinelli, who also has been working on the Innovative Mobility Program, will be stepping into that role and helping us coordinate and oversee that work. So all of those changes kind of happen officially next week. So you're kind of the first to officially hear it. But we're happy to have good people and being able to make some adjustments and make sure that these programs have the support that they need. So happy to answer any questions about that. But that's the major news I wanted to share with you all today, and then happy to answer any questions you may have had that may have come up from the legislative briefing. I'm afraid I was in another meeting, so I missed it. So it's hard to know what you weren't told.
Any questions? Well, oh, there we go. Emma, we can count on you.
He's so fast for your meetings once I'm no longer here. I wanted to clarify a little bit. We talked about the budget bills at a high level, and then we talked about how 4007 did not cut Safe Routes to School, did not impact the multimodal active transportation fund that in part funds the Oregon Community Paths. But then at the end, there was this little teaser saying, well, the budget bill is going to have impacts to PTD. And I don't think we've closed the loop on what are the anticipated impacts? Where are things headed?
Right, great. Thank you. Thanks for the summary of what you were informed of. So yes, the ODOT budget bill, if it passes and it's moving through the legislature now, does include cuts that will impact our active transportation grants. It will include estimated cuts of 8 million to our Oregon Community Paths program and 17 million to our Safe Routes to School. So that's significant, and 5 million to our Innovative Mobility program. So right now kind of looking at what that means and how what that means in terms of longer term funding. I think short term, what we know it means is that we will not have funding available for solicitations this year for Safe Routes to School and Oregon Community Paths. And we will know more by the end of this year what the timing will be of when we can resume that solicitation for next year. So we'll be able to provide, once session ends and we kind of see what the final results are, we'll be able to provide this committee, and we'll follow up in the interim before your next meeting with just kind of a summary of what it means in our understanding. But yes, it will have a significant impact on short-term solicitations, but know that these are temporary cuts. And I think the intention of the legislature is to come back in the 2027 session to develop longer-term funding support for transportation. Any other questions?
And Dave, I think you're on mute.
Well, that kind of ruined my joke. I, I just wonder why I didn't get to veto Leanne's transfer here. That's, she's been around ever since I got involved in this stuff.
Well, we did decide that she's given her new role. It's very appropriate. She'll be coming back to OBPAC, so you will continue to see Leanne.
And I know I think the meeting in June might be in person with maybe some other options for outside folks to come. So I would love to see you all in June.
Congratulations, Leanne. That's great.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Andrea.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have fun on your walk. Okay. So I believe we now have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes. So let's loop back and real quick see if we can get approval for our minutes from the last meeting. If no one has any questions or comments, can I get a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comment? No, please.
I think we have a comment from Beth.
Yeah, sorry.
You're moving too fast for me.
Hey, I'm trying to get us back on schedule here, Beth.
I haven't turned into a ghost. The sun just came out, and so there you go. It'll go back in a minute. Let's see. Oh, I think I just this is a constant comment I have. No acronyms, please. So there was after the names of people who were guests, it said SRTC, I don't know, what is it? OHA, DLCD, TGM. I know what they are, but not everybody does. So I would like to have those spelled out. But with the exception of that, I would propose that, should I go ahead and say that we pass it, or make a motion? I don't know.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded after correction. All in favor? Okay, good. Thank you. Last meeting's minutes are approved. Sorry, I've been moving stuff around on my agenda here. So now we're going to move into the OBPAC co-chair election. So we had an opening for a co-chair. We called for nominations. We received three nominations in advance of the meeting. That was Andre, Beth, and Nolan. Andre and Beth have both politely declined. So Nolan is currently the only candidate. Are there any other nominations? Okay, not seeing any other nominations. We will hold a vote here. Ian and Roberto, given there's only one candidate, do we need to do a roll call? How do we do that?
I think you can probably go ahead with just the, as you did before, all ayes and nays.
Okay, so all in favor of Nolan Poole as our next co-chair, please show your support here.
Do I vote too, or is that illegal?
You can vote for yourself.
I'll vote for myself.
All opposed? Oh, Nolan voted against himself. No. Okay, congratulations, Nolan. Thanks for stepping up, and thanks everyone for making this happen. So you and I are going to get to be better buddies here over the next few months.
Exciting.
And we definitely need some young enthusiasm in the leadership role here to help me out. So, okay, how are we doing? 307. Excellent. Okay, so moving along, next on the agenda, we're going to do our Meet Your OBPAC member, which has been a really good way for us to get to know a little bit more about each of our members and what kind of moves them and shakes them and makes them want to be part of us here. So Carrie has agreed to share. Carrie?
Awesome. Great to be here, everyone. Ian or Roberto, were you going to share the slides, or I can share them myself?
Yeah, I got your slides. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And just let me know when I can move forward to the next slide.
Okay. I want to introduce myself. My name is Carrie Roberson. I am with Multnomah County Public Health Department. I work in the REACH division, and REACH is Racial and Ethnic Approaches to Community Health. Our foremost goal is to redress chronic disease in the Multnomah County for the Black and African immigrant refugee community. And as well, we do wraparound support and community connections for the greater Multnomah County area. One of our main focuses is active transportation as a means of connecting community members and encouraging and improving health outcomes. Next slide. It was my personal passion and experience for active transportation. I took buses and walked in my youth and into my adulthood. From the time I was in kindergarten through high school, I was on either public transportation or busing. I was part of the first cohort of Black children that were bused out to Lake Oswego in the 70s. I know I don't look that old, but that is what happened. And like there was just one large bus of us that was distributed throughout the whole Lake Oswego school district. So even though they integrated, we were only integrated like 2 or 3 Black students in each school. And so that was a whole type of transportation that opened up my mind to a wider world, and yet caused to have lesser opportunities for me in like connecting with other youth after school, because I had to get back on my assigned school bus and get back to Northeast Portland. And my mom did not have the proper transportation or time to come out to Lake Oswego and get me, after school activities or anything like that. So for me, there's always pluses and some types of barriers, especially when you're dealing with time allocations. I was an avid bike rider also as a youth. I rode all around, Northeast Portland just freely. And I don't see that same freedom with our youth nowadays. So that's something that is encouraging me to participate in the processes. My work with the active transportation arena began with a fellowship cohort with America Walks, which is a national advocacy organization, just improving walking for citizens throughout the country, walking opportunities, and just promoting walking as a means of better health and community connection, but also a right. It is our right to be able to move freely throughout spaces without detriment to our health and well-being. Since working with Multnomah County Health Department in 2022, I've conducted neighborhood walk audits. I was a board member for Oregon Walks from 2023 to 2025. So was able to impact some decisions and policies that was in the greater, not just the Portland area, but greater Oregon as well. So that's what interested me in this board, as well as my director had asked me to apply for the board position, as we have, active transportation is a huge part of our portfolio in reach. Next slide, please. Yay. Awesome America Walks College Fellow. It was a very interesting opportunity to be able to talk to people across the nation, and then also having an ear to policies that were groundbreaking and forthcoming. What unique perspective do I bring to OBPAC? My work takes me to many community settings where people arrive walking and biking, as well as from transportation, but you have to walk from whatever transportation that you've had. So I should have included that as well. Hearing their stories gives me a lot of information on which to advocate for them in ways that can be important and impactful. I've always enjoyed the pleasures, but also I've experienced the pitfalls of taking buses, trains, and walking, and like to bring that perspective to the community. Next and last slide. Who inspires my work in this field? My older CHWs, which is community health workers, and community members that are passionate about biking and walking even into their older age. These are two septuagenarians that lead walks in East Portland for us from the Playground Learn Farmers Market. And this is us in Chicago, where we were at the Tobacco Cessation Convention, because that's also part of what we do as we are walking or bringing people to cooking events or other connected cultural events. We are introducing them to resources and new ideas on how to promote their health, such as better eating, keeping more active, and limiting their tobacco consumption. But here you can see Miss Rhonda is following along behind. She keeps up the rear while other people may be leading to just kind of protect and guard our elders. You can see someone's here in their wheelchair, and we have people that are on walkers. And so they depart from the farmers market in a group of up to 20 people with all modes of transportation, from strollers, walkers, and wheelchairs, besides walking themselves. And so just keep it in mind the obstacles that they face, as well as the joy that they have in participating in these opportunities, uplifting those in most of the things that I do, like having their ideals leading me. Well, thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Wow. I just feel your work must be so exciting. Um, you know, I'm glad I did my presentation before I did yours because I'd be too intimidated to even do one after seeing that one. That's great. Thank you,
Dave,
Karen.
you're funny. You're welcome. And I do, yes, I really do love my job. I was drawn into it from the peripheral, just seeing what the Reach Department and the county was doing with the community and so many different community-based organizations that we use to do our work in the community. We don't provide direct service. We provide resources and guidance and program support to community-based organizations so that they're directly the ones, leading and keeping our communities active.
Yeah, I think Carrie, you're a little younger than me, but still, I remember riding my bike, and this I put in my when I applied for this position is riding my bike to the library a mile away, no bike lanes, just and cutting shortcuts. Which anyway, it was wonderful, and I had such independence, and I could get a new book anytime I wanted, and it's just that's gone, and that would be my goal for Newport, where I live, is for kids to be able to do that. But with 101 bisecting Newport, it's tough. And just with every town, there's something bisecting it or cross-secting it. So yeah, we got to keep working.
I love that you said that, Beth, because I have a lot of family on the Oregon coast, and just either visiting or interacting with them. It is it's a high priority for me as well. So even though I'm in the in the urban setting, I also have a very much heart for the coastal and the rural communities and their lack of ability to get around. Because like I was stuck down in Glen Eden Beach with my mom with no car because her car broke down. And that was just a mess.
Yeah, it is. Okay, let's keep at it.
Thank you.
I just want to say thanks for doing your work and everything you do because we share the same vision, and I'm so glad that you're working on it, especially because I want to move back to Portland, and I hope that I can, get my friends and, maybe my kids one day to have that same experience that, you just get to go to the library or wherever you want. Because yeah, we don't have that anymore. So thank you for working so hard on that.
Thank you, Nolan.
Hey, thanks so much, Carrie. That was great. Now I missed an item on the agenda. I apologize. Fortunately, it was just Ian, so nobody too important. But we're going to circle back and let Ian do his presentation on the updates to the Oregon Coast bike route.
Thanks, Dave. So let's see. Okay, hopefully you can see my slides. Wonderful. All right, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Oregon Coast bike route, do a little bit of reflection on the Oregon Coast bike route plan that was finalized a few years ago, talk about some next steps and highlight some work that's been done recently. So before we dive into that, let's talk about the Oregon Coast bike route as a whole. So you'll see throughout the presentation, the bike route shortened down to OCBR. So that is the Oregon Coast Bike Route. So it was formally designated by the Oregon Transportation Commission in 1982. It is the only bike route, excuse me, it was the first bike route designated by the Oregon Transportation Commission. So there are scenic bikeways those are managed and designated by Oregon Parks. This is a bike route designated by the Oregon Transportation Commission. It's over 370 miles in length, and the Adventure Cycling Association, which is a nationwide cycling touring association, notes that it's one of their most popular routes in a nationwide network of bicycle routes. Of course, it's not just for people who are touring, though. There are over 200,000 residents on the Oregon coast, 63,000 jobs within 2 miles of the Oregon Coast Bike Route, and often there is a direct overlap or at least close access to the Oregon Coast Trail, which is for hikers on foot. The Oregon Coast Bike Route Plan was started in 2018 and it was adopted formally in 2022. The plan did a few things. It identified the needs to support bicycle travel, connectivity, and safety along the route. It evaluated the routes, identified those most critical needs, and then identified where it needed to leave US 101. It also defined projects and supportive program investments. So once we have identified those critical needs, how are we going to pay for them? And then lastly, it determined how we and the local governments may make investments in the route. So the plan had some recommendations on how to change this route. So since 1982, when it was formally designated, the route has changed somewhat. There were some pretty significant changes here based on improvements to infrastructure and changes to infrastructure. We're not going to go through all of them. You can look at the Oregon Coast Bike Route Plan. Those are recommendations. Those recommendations are currently being included into the formal Oregon Coast Bike Route map update that is ongoing right now. So about every 10 years, the Oregon Coast Bike Route map, the physical map, I'm holding one right here, is printed and then distributed widely. Anybody who wants a copy can get a copy. Periodically, I'll get calls or emails from people out in Boston who are planning a trip that they've been, looking forward to for decades, and they want a map to help them plan this trip. And so we'll send them a map. So most of the recommendations are incorporated. Were incorporated. There is a new primary route designated. There are also some new alternate routes. Some people like the more scenic route. Sometimes those scenic routes include a 13% grade. And so if folks want to do that, they are welcome to do that. And then the new map will also include up-to-date shoulder and bike width data because that data has changed since the last publishing. And then the new map will also direct folks to the new landing page that I'll talk about in a little bit. In fact, next slide, I believe. Yeah, so we are working on developing what we're calling a landing page, a website functionally, to bring the Oregon Coast Bike Route into the 21st century. So this would have a few resources that we believe would be valuable to people using the Oregon Coast Bike Route. For one, it would have a downloadable map. And when I say downloadable map, I don't just mean that it would be this map that you could download. You can do that now on ODOT's website. It would be downloadable so it could go onto your phone or onto your bike computer. It would be downloadable in that way. If you happen to use a particular tool to navigate, it would help you do that. We are also looking at updates to having a digital map. And so when there are updates to the route, those updates could occur when those infrastructure improvements are made, as opposed to waiting for the next physical printing of a map, which happens, once every decade. Also, we're looking at including updates for when a route is impacted. So if you're planning a trip, if you rely simply on a physical map, you may not know, as Dave identified a few months ago, if there's a required route deviation because there's a road construction happening on a certain segment of the Oregon Coast Bike Route. Our goal is to have that information automatically populated in this landing page. Next, and somewhat whimsically, is we're creating a way for people to celebrate completing the Oregon Coast Bike Route. And so right now, if you were to complete the Oregon Coast Bike Route, you would reach the California border. You probably take a photo, maybe at the Welcome to Oregon sign, and you would feel great. But there's not a a ticker tape line for you to run through. So the Oregon Coast Trail, the Oregon Coast Trail Foundation, excuse me, has partnered with Travel Oregon to have a sign at the Travel Oregon Welcome Center in Brookings, just north of the state border. And so they have a sign where if you have walked the 400 some odd miles of the Oregon Coast Trail, you walk to this Welcome Center, and then you get your photo taken with this sign that says, "I've completed the Oregon Coast Trail." We wanted to emulate that, and so we modified the Oregon Coast Bike Route sign, and then we've now have it printed. It's going to be sent to Travel Oregon here in the next couple months, so that when that Welcome Center opens, people who do ride the full length of the Oregon Coast Bike Route, they can get a little. It's a cherry on top to their experience. So one thing that the Oregon Coast Bike Route plan identified was a lot of critical needs on the Oregon Coast Bike Route. We won't be able to go through all of them. You can, of course, review them in the plan itself, but there are improvements needed up and down the coast. These critical needs, they were broken into short-term solutions, long-term solutions. And the thing I want to stress is that progress is occurring, that improvements are being made to the Oregon Coast Bike Route. The need is immense, though. But I did want to highlight some of the improvements that are occurring, or have occurred, rather. So this is Seaside, or was Seaside, rather. This is the before. So if you were to bike through downtown Seaside, this would be your experience. Occasionally there's a bike lane, but now you have buffered bike lanes through much of downtown. So it's not through all of downtown, but through much of downtown, there is now buffered bike lanes. So it's a better biking experience through one of the most popular coastal destinations. And so this, of course, improves the quality of life for people who are biking the full length of the Oregon Coast Bike Route. But this, of course, improves the quality of life people who are biking just within Seaside. This project also happened to include some sidewalk improvements and other pedestrian improvements. So, of course, it's benefiting locals there as well. Here is Highway 101 in Garibaldi, a little further south. This is the before, so there's no bike lanes. And now here's after. There's now bike lanes running through Garibaldi. Yeah, pretty significant improvement there. Next up is Yachats. So just south of Yachats, there was the shoulder, which was a pretty narrow shoulder. And it's in a particularly hilly section, like you're going down a hill, and whether or not there's vegetation there. Anyways, it was not ideal conditions. And so ODOT funded this project, but Yachats, the city of Yachats built it. So they extended the shoulder, and then they have these tubular markers now separating traffic and visually telling traffic, hey, this is not your zone. And so this is one of those segments that overlaps with both the Oregon Coast Trail. So hikers use this as well as the Oregon Coast Bike Route. The city of Yachats was very excited about this. They highlighted it in their own social media. And then the Yachats News, the local news, had a absolutely glowing report about this improvement. I know they normally say don't read the comments, but I chose to read the comments on this article, and they were overwhelmingly positive. One commenter said, "Fantastic. This was long needed, and kudos to the town in making the trip to and from the south of the bridge safer." And I think that's emblematic of how these investments not only improve the totality of the Oregon Coast Bike Route, but also the local communities where these investments are being made. One of the recommendations for Yachats was actually to explore a transit connection. Visit Yachats in partnership with Travel Oregon, the Oregon Coast Visitors Association, the Chamber of Commerce, as well as Yachats. They're doing a Yachats area trolley pilot this year. It's going to run from Beachside State Park to Cape Perpetua, which is about 10 miles. And so depending on your comfort level, if you wanted to bike that segment of the Oregon Coast Bike Route, you could stick your bike on the front of the trolley and then avoid certain segments of it. Or if you wanted to not actually bike all the way to the top of the Cape, you could take the bus, or excuse me, the trolley on out. So that's just a few examples of some of the investments. This is by no means a total reflection of the changes that have been made to the Oregon Coast Bike Route since the adoption of the Oregon Coast Bike Route Plan, but I wanted to give you a glimpse of some of the changes that are occurring. And so to wrap up, I'd love to seek your advice. So as we roll out the new map, both the physical map and then the online version, what organizations should we partner with to publicize this new map? Similarly, what information would you like to see on the Oregon Coast Bike Route landing page? And then lastly, what kind of information should we collect from those who complete the Oregon Coast Bike Route? And so what I mean by that is that Travel Oregon has agreed to have a QR code for folks who go and get their picture taken with that sign to allow them to provide feedback on the Oregon Coast Bike Route. And so we intend to set up a small little survey for them. But we don't want it to be too lengthy because we actually want them to complete the survey. But what kind of information do you recommend that we collect? And channeling Leanne earlier, please be very broad in your advice and or specific, but don't hold back in your advice, but recognize that we do have constraints, and so we may not be able to implement all of your recommendations. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Could you go back to the questions, Ian?
Sure.
Are we doing question time now, or is it?
You know what? Let me drop them in the chat. How about that?
Do you want the answers in email, or do you want? Or do we
Oh,
have
no,
time
no.
to answer
I'd love
them
to.
now?
I'd love to hear now. Yes.
Oh, okay. Then I'll just go now because I'm already talking. For the organizations that you could talk or publicize with, I'm sure this is probably a thing at other universities, but the University of Oregon, we have an outdoor program, and they have all sorts of little guides. Oh, go ski at Hoodoo or whatever. And you could do a little go to the Oregon coast and bike the bike thing. And I'm not sure if that's a thing at OSU and other places, but I'd assume it is. Um, and then I was also wondering about if you could do like maybe I know there's a lot of casinos on the coast, and maybe they'd be interested in that. I'm not sure. And then there's also the Siletz Reservation, but I don't know how much population density they have and if that's worth the time doing. But these are just the ideas going through my head. So take what you want. Um, and I think what I would want to see about collecting what you collect from people who complete it is just where do you think it was the worst? Where would you want upgrades? 'Cause I mean that's as the person running the bike program, that's what you need to know. Um, yeah. And I think if I was to go to the landing page, I would mostly just want the map. So, but I think that's already there. I think that's what you said. So that sounds good.
Thanks, Nolan.
Thank you for the presentation.
Dave?
Actually, I'm going to defer to Brad. We're a little short on time. I want to make sure he gets a chance to jump in here.
Okay, I'll keep it quick then. I just had two suggestions and a question. Her question was on the Yachts with the bike lane widening, because I saw that on the one side was a tiny shoulder and the other side was a medium-sized shoulder, and then the medium-sized shoulder is the one that got the expansion. Is that for two-way traffic or like, yeah?
Yeah, yes, it is for two-way traffic, particularly two-way local traffic for the people who are hiking the Oregon Coast Trail or biking the Oregon Coast Bike Route. They typically are southbound, and so that traffic is headed that way, which is part of the reason why it's on that side of the road. But for locals who are getting to the south side, absolutely two direction.
That makes sense. Okay. You said where would you put the maps or whatever? I'd say, I mean, lots of people here read Bike Portland. You know, having Jonathan do a little story on that would probably get some traffic. Travel Oregon. And then what would I want to see if I looked at your website is suggestions of where to camp
Yeah.
or hotel or both. Yeah, like yeah, because I might be staying in hotels on sometimes and trying to just do self-supported camping on the other times. I'd like to see those.
That's great. Yeah,
Those-
and Oregon State Parks has a pretty robust hiker-biker camp network along the coast, and so we can direct folks to that.
Nice.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
So you already mentioned the Adventure Cycling Association. So they, of course, have their own Pacific Coast Bike Route, which encompasses the Oregon coast, and they generally follow the state, the Oregon Coast Bike Route, but not 100%. And they have also now partnered with Ride with GPS for a online follow your GPS route for people who want to do that. And I don't know how you can coordinate that, but just throw that out there. And the other thing I just wanted to comment, if you want to put your bike on the trolley bus, just make sure you're going south in the summer, because northbound bike racks are always full in the summer because people think they're going to ride north and then they find out how tough that is. The wind is always blowing from the north. And there was one other thing, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dell since he's got his hand up there.
Yeah, I was just going to say another thing that should be highlighted on that map is bike shops and rental facilities.
Thank you for that, Bill.
Oh, I remember what my other one was, Ian, and that is you might want to think about putting a sign with the QR code to review the bike route at the beginning at the north end, and so people could capture it, and then when they run into something they particularly find to be good or bad, they could do it then. Just a thought.
Yeah. Let me think through how to do that. I like that.
And Brad, with e-bikes, maybe we'll see more people riding north.
Beth?
Yeah, there are a couple of bike shops on the map now, and that both of the websites listed are not correct. So I would recommend just taking off the websites and putting on more of them. I think one's in Newport and one's in I think Tillamook, but maybe either perhaps get them to pay for an ad or something. That's my comment.
Thanks, Beth. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.
Anybody's got any additional thoughts, please feel free to email or let Ian know in another way. But right now we're sort of right on schedule here. So now we're moving into the OBPAC business portion of our day. So the first part is we've got a proposal to change the June meeting from the first week to the second week. And Ian, maybe I'll just let you talk about that real quick.
Thanks, Dave. So we have an opportunity in June to do something pretty special. So on June 11th is actually the 55th anniversary of the passage of the Oregon Bicycle and Pedestrian Bill. So the bill that not only created OBPAC, but kind of created a renaissance in bicycle and pedestrian, both infrastructure and culture. You could very credibly argue that Oregon is Oregon in no small part because of the Oregon Bicycle and Pedestrian Bill. And so there's an opportunity for us to slightly shift the timing of our OBPAC meeting to coincide with June 11th and do it in Salem and then hold a celebration. June 11th also happens to be a day when the Oregon Transportation Commission is meeting in Salem. They have expressed interest in participating in a celebration. Obviously, a lot of the particulars of what the celebration might look like and how big it might be depend a great deal on what happens at the legislature over this next few days. If needed, I will buy a cake and that will be the celebration. But hopefully we can do something a little more. But regardless, there's an opportunity to do something special to celebrate the last 55 years and to look ahead to the next 55 years in Oregon. And if it works for folks, I think it'd be great to move our meeting just a little. So that would put our tour on June 10th in Salem, where we would go around. And then on June 11th would be the in-person meeting, and then followed by a bike bill celebration immediately thereafter.
Thanks. So I guess the question to the committee is, does anybody see any big problems in moving the meeting to those dates?
I have my finals week that week, but I'm looking at what time my finals are. So let me see really quick.
Anybody else while he's checking?
I think we should invite, if we're going to have a celebration on the 11th, we should invite past OBPAC members, especially Emma. But all of the more recent ones for sure. And I mean, if we could even go back further and invite others to attend some sort of cake thing. Just a thought, but definitely at least from the last 5-10 years. That is also just a thought.
I love that idea. Yeah, and I will ask for your all's help if you have contact information for past folks. We'll, of course, have some records from people who have participated in the past, but you may be able to fill in gaps that we don't have.
Okay, I see Emma comment in the chat that she cannot make it.
As long as she eats cake on her bike tour, it counts.
Hey, the Lost Coast is supposed to be pretty awesome challenge.
If I can find cake, it's pretty remote.
Yeah.
As
Take your
far
satellite communicator.
as far as I can tell, it doesn't conflict with my finals, so I think it's a wonderful idea. It
Cool.
also would be nice to finally meet the OTC.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll give Emma a hall pass given her excuse, and we'll go ahead and plan that. Um, Anything else we need to talk about regarding that?
I'm afraid that was the 10th and the 11th.
Yes, the 10th and the 11th. So it would probably be two half days. So starting around noon or 1 on the 10th, and then wrapping up maybe 1 or 2. I actually don't know that because it depends on the celebration.
Okay.
But it would allow for travel for folks.
And for Brad or anybody else who hasn't done this before, ODOT, does cover the cost of the travel. So
Sounds like a party. My one question, it's a little bit I don't know exactly what I got going on if I can't make it because I don't know. I mean,
Can
I'll
you
do my
remote
best.
in?
I'll do my best. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll know here in a few days what's going on and get it solid for sure.
And if you're unable to make it, we have a virtual
You can
option where
party
you can
without me.
join. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll eat extra cake.
Yeah. I'm excited. This sounds like a fun field trip.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to
okay,
be in person this year. I think it was in Detroit last year.
Yeah, I always loved everybody coming. It's really
yeah,
important. Yeah.
It definitely made the Zoom calls more fun when you'd actually met people in person and
Exactly.
you all
Yeah.
just weren't pixels.
Exactly.
okay. So let's try and get this thing wrapped up. We got just a couple of other short things. Reports from our members serving on other committees. Nolan, anything on safe routes to school?
I don't think I missed the last meeting because had a class, so I haven't done anything with them since we last met.
Okay. Um, Emma, you already mentioned a little bit about the Jurisdictional Transfer Advisory Committee. Anything else you want to?
Yes, we've met twice between the last OBPAC meeting and today. We as a committee have recommended all 3 applications to the legislature for jurisdictional transfer funding. So there's an application for Hood River Highway out in Hood River from Oak Street to Pacific Street on Oregon 281. It's a really cool couplet situation where one street would turn into really emphasizing active transportation, and the other street carries some of the truck traffic needs. Washington County, Farmington Highway, Oregon 10 from Southwest 198th Avenue to Southwest Kinnaman Road. It's a missing segment where there's been transfers on either side, but not that piece yet. And then Tigard Hall Boulevard, Oregon 141, Locust Street to Durham Road. And this is queuing up for the legislative session, long session next year. Hoping that the legislature might fund some of these because I think we'll see an uptick in participation from jurisdictions if there is reason to show up, as in real dollars going towards these jurisdictional transfers. But I'll just say it has been such a pleasure to serve on the committee. Great group of people, really collaborative, and truly a pleasure. So whoever takes my position on that committee, have fun, enjoy.
Well, and I'd like to add to that. Maybe we can get Roberto to send out a link to the state webpage on the committee so that our members can take a look at it and see if they might want to think about volunteering to be our representative there. Um, is that okay, Roberto, tagging you with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Not a problem at all.
Thank you. Okay, and then finally, the Mobility Advisory Committee, which I am now on. Nothing really exciting since our last meeting. I'm kind of working my way through another couple of monthly meetings, and then I'm gonna want to start making some suggestions to them on updating their temporary road closure questionnaire that they make people fill out who want to do temporary closures and narrowings and other things for construction. There's currently very little to nothing in there about bike ped stuff, and I think there's a good opportunity to make it a little better because I know that all of us who do road rides kind of run into these things where all of a sudden it's like, where am I supposed to go now in the middle of a detour? So anyway, nothing else there. Unless anyone has anything else, I think we are ready to adjourn.
I have just a question. Emma, does this mean this is your last meeting with us?
Yes.
Yes? No, no, no.
I may come back to drop in and
Answer is no. Go ahead. What'd you say?
I may be a visitor to meetings in the future, but this is my last meeting as a committee member, and it's been a pleasure
Okay,
to
I
serve
guess
with you.
I can't hijack you and
I got Mavis to stay on for another 6 months, but I'm out.
I know. We talked Mavis into it. You can do it too.
Well, she
Aren't
didn't
you
look at her
challenged
end
by
date. She just thought she was terming off, but she wasn't done yet.
Okay, so sad to see you go. End of a really great era. And thank you
I
for
will say
everything
it's going
you've
to free
done.
up some of my capacity to, we're leaning into the active transportation plan we're doing at City of Springfield and our TSP update. And we just went from bronze to silver through the League of American Bicycle recognition system. So
You're
there's
doing
local,
amazing work
local
down
work
there.
to be done, and I really appreciate the state work all of you are doing that supports locals to do this. And I think one of the BPAC applicants locally commented on coming from a different state and was saying the bike bill is so key. Like Oregon is in a different place today because of the 55 years of all the work that has happened and the system change that's occurred because of that bill back in the 70s. So celebrate, have fun, keep doing the good work.
Okay. All right, Emma.
So
She's
Emma,
out.
I have to say you were one of I talked to you at least once before I even ever applied to OBPAC, and I thought, well, this must be a good group if Emma's on it. So we'll miss you.
Yeah, we'll miss you.
So this
Okay.
this is Carrie. I just got a notice from someone that about the Safe Routes to School annual conference. So I put the link in the chat if anyone is interested in attending.
Great.
It's October.
Great. Okay.
Okay, folks. Thank you so much. I think it seemed like we had a really great meeting today. Lots of good information, a lot of good conversation. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.